Apex is a game based on getting damage and kills. That's why these videos get so much play. But here's the thing, if you're an average gamer like me, then chances are good you've never seen a 4K game, much less a 3K game. In fact, my highest damage game is a 2.8K. And don't even get me started about dropping a 20 bomb. If I get more than 5 kills in a game, it's a good one. And if I'm close to 10, I'm super happy. So how does an average gamer like me win more gunfights and games? Well, you know the old saying about working smarter and not harder? Turns out that your grandpa's wisdom still applies today to video games. So the big idea here is that Apex is a game based on trading damage. Do more damage, get more kills, right? Well, for someone who struggles to hit targets like I do, a better strategy is actually not to deal more damage, but to take less. This might seem backwards, or even the same statement, but this subtle change in your thinking can radically change the way you view cover and peeking. First though, I'm not saying that you shouldn't ever fight, and that you should hide when your teammates push, or that you shouldn't ever take damage. Well, that's just silly. So here are 4 things you can do to use this shift in thinking to your benefit. The first thing is regarding positioning. The biggest piece of advice that I've ever heard is this: when fighting, use the 50-50 rule. What's the 50-50 rule, I hear you ask? Well, 50% of your screen should be covered by cover whenever you're exchanging fire. Now, this doesn't mean that you always need 50% of your screen to be covered. Sometimes it can be as much as 80, other times it can be as little as 20. It really depends on the situation and what you're doing or planning. Now, the purpose of this is to hide as much of your hitbox as possible, making you a harder target to hit, which will, in turn, have you take less damage. But this brings up the broader topic of utilizing cover. You should be using cover to break line of sight from the enemy while doing things like reloading, gun swapping, healing, or even prepping a grenade or ability so you don't get shot. Then, when you're ready to go again, you can pop out of cover and do some more damage. This minimizes the time that the enemy can do damage to you and maximizes the time that you can do damage to them. Which brings up the idea of potential damage, but we'll get to that in a bit. First, let's talk a little bit more about cover. Now, you should always be aware of where the cover is during any fight you're taking, whether that means that you wait in cover while the enemy comes to you, you run to cover to start a fight as the aggressor, or when ambushed, you find cover as quickly as possible. Let those poor walls and trees soak up all the damage for you while you hide. One thing to consider is that all the legends are right-handed, which means that the character models hold their gun on their right side. This means that when you peek right, only a little bit of your body will be exposed to be shot at. But when you peek left, even though you may be holding the 50% rule for cover, more of your body is exposed than you think or want. Do your best to peek off the right side of objects, such as doors, walls, or pillars, as this keeps more of your hitbox out of line of sight than peeking to the left. Some of the best cover to use are head glitches. Now, a head glitch is where the only part of your body that is exposed is your head and your gun. Using these makes it really hard for your opponent to hit you while giving you free rein to shoot wildly. This is one of the reasons why holding high ground is so effective. But high ground is not the only place you can utilize a head glitch. You can use things such as the edge of a building, a rise in the terrain, a box that you're behind when the enemy actually has high ground on you. This is also what makes legends like Rampart and Newcastle good, is that they can create cover out of nothing. So, when you're fighting, do your best to find cover and to utilize it to your benefit to soak up as much damage as you can. Peek from the right side of objects, not the left, and look for head glitches wherever and whenever you can. Now, this brings me to the second point here. Peek more effectively. When you're using cover, you need to move out of cover to shoot the bad guys. This is what's called peeking. If you're good at this, you can do a whole bunch of damage while taking very little. But there are some things to keep in mind. If you're predictable in how you're peeking, you'll take more damage than you should. So be a bit unpredictable. When you break line of sight, don't just pop back up in the same place. Move to the right or to the left a bit so that the moment your head pops up, they won't be able to just pull the trigger. They'll have to aim for a split second. This gives you a moment to do the same. This is also where lag and latency play a bit of a role, which this gets a bit more technical, but stick with me here for a bit. If you're the one doing the peeking, then you're the one initiating the fight, which means that the data that is representative of you is being sent to the server first, which means that you'll be the first one firing no matter what the screen says. Lag and latency play to the benefit of the attacker. This is true for peeking, but it's also true for pushing around corners or doors. If you know where the enemy is and that he's weak, don't be afraid to push, as getting the drop on them is beneficial for a myriad of reasons. But I hear you asking, what if there is no cover to play behind? Well, anything can be cover, really. Remember the old Bugs Bunny cartoons where they'd try to hide behind a pole? Well, do like they do. Anything that will stop bullets from going into your soft, fleshy body is good to use. Is there a tree? Use it. A lamppost? It might block a bullet or two. A box? Duck. A slight dip in the landscape? Back up and think small. Do whatever you can to put something between your enemy and you, even your teammates sometimes. But what if you're truly out of cover? There are many places on every map where there just is no cover. When you find yourself here, now is when things get difficult. First, you have to hit your shots. Then, when you reload or change weapons, you need to make yourself hard to hit. Turn and run, slide or slide jump during the reload animation until your gun is ready to go again. Anything you can do to make yourself a harder target for your opponent to hit is going to be good for you. Now, for some legends, cover can be created naturally. We already talked about Rampart and Newcastle, as they can both create cover out of nothing. Well, now Conduit can throw her ultimate out, and the beacons don't allow for pass-through damage, so you can hide behind them for some makeshift cover. Ashe can quickly portal to somewhere more conducive to cover. Wraith can use her Into the Void ability to relocate. Gibraltar can put his bubble down. Watson can put her gen down. Catalyst can put up their wall. Bangalore can smoke to break line of sight. Horizon can throw down either her grav lift or a black hole to make it difficult to see. Pathfinder can use his grapple to reposition or reset. Revenant and Vantage can both jump to much the same effect. Mirage can create a lot of confusion, which it's not exactly cover, but it fits the principle. Lifeline can call in a care package, though that is a bit slow. And keeping with the slow theme, Caustic can place barrels. And as long as they're not shot in the base before they can fully inflate, they can also soak up some damage. Knowing your legend and their kit can vastly increase your chances of survival if you're caught in the open. So that brings us to the last point here, gunplay and timing. The last thing to talk about here is how to use cover to your advantage based on the information that you can gather as you're exchanging fire. Now, what I mean by this is that every gun has a time when they are effective and a time when they are not. If a gun has a full magazine and is out and ready to fire, then its damage potential is the highest. On the other hand, if a gun has an empty magazine and hasn't been reloaded yet, its damage potential is at the lowest. Ideally, you want to attack your target when your damage potential is at the highest and theirs is at the lowest. This means you have to pay attention not only to your weapon's damage potential, but your enemy's too. Did he just spray you with an SMG? Well, you have a bit of time while his gun is reloading to peak. Did he just shoot an LMG for a moment and then stop? Well, his damage potential is probably still high, so be careful. This can be tricky, but as you start paying attention to what your enemy has done, you'll find that you'll be able to make better decisions about your own play. This goes for abilities too. You need to become familiar with not only all the legends and the abilities they can use, but what those abilities do and what they sound like. That is a broader topic, but as a thing to do while playing, catalog in your head what your abilities sound like and when you use them. Then, when you see someone else playing that legend, remember what you did and what it sounded like. This can give you a huge advantage in a fight against someone who maybe isn't paying as much attention as you are. And at the least, it puts you on even footing with someone who is. Legends and their abilities, though, are a whole nother topic, so just know to keep in mind the abilities your opponents have used and what their cooldowns are. As you improve in Apex, you'll likely find that it's not so much that you can shoot better, although I do hope that happens, but that you're able to parse the game and all that's happening better. It's a chaotic mess out there with all the things that can be happening at the same time, and if you're playing ranked, then chances are good that you're going to experience some truly insane final circles. Just know that if you work at it, this game does slow down a bit over time. Well, that's all I got for you today. See you out there.
Yeah, boy! What a tactful victory.